Well, it's been noted as of late that guest behavior in theme parks is less than stellar. I'm not really sure what the reason in the uptick of these are. Maybe people are just seeing them more. Maybe it's the heat. Maybe it's the high prices people are paying. Maybe it's just simply human nature on some level. But we have had more incidents of in-park altercations and just bad guest behavior. And we have another edition of this today, as we have a couple of stories that happened at Disney World that are, let's just say, less than stellar. And in the spirit of what not to do in theme parks, we have a couple of stories here we're going to read through and give some thoughts on. So hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic, and this is from WDWNT, and it says, Florida man tries to fight woman in wheelchair at Epcot.
Oh, jeez.
Said families at Walt Disney World during last year's holiday season might have witnessed two 25-year-olds getting arrested, with one of them screaming that Disney cast members were certain choice words. We're not going to repeat here, but colorful language, we'll just say. Matinel Ada of Fort Lauderdale and Dominic Ciro, of Plantation were arrested after the November 16th scene at Epcot. Both have pleaded not guilty to pending criminal charges. The report says a group of young people were in an argument at the France Pavilion with a woman who used a wheelchair. It's unclear what prompted the argument. Ada tried to physically fight the woman in the wheelchair. That's a choice. Because he felt disrespected and wanted to confront her, the arrest report says.
It's science.
The altercation continued all the way to the land pavilion, where one of the males in the young adult group approached the handicapped woman in a wheelchair and began a verbal tirade directed at her in front of hundreds of guests. Once Disney security was made aware of the situation, once again, they intervened and contacted law enforcement. Disney wanted everyone kicked out of the park. A Disney security manager advised the woman in the wheelchair that her time at the park was done for the day and politely asked her to exit. So it seems like she did something. Not really sure why. They don't obviously know details here, but they typically, I'm guessing this was not just a one-way thing in which this whole predicament started, I would suppose. She complied without incident. She later approached the group of young adults, which included the two that got arrested. Once she advised them that their day at the park was over and politely asked them to leave, Dominic became extremely irate and verbally abusive. A group of Disney security managers walked both Ciro and Ada and the rest of the group out of Epcot. Ciro began filming and getting in the faces of Disney managers. He began to cuss and while stumbling over into their personal space, screaming, again, certain choice words. At one point, he moved closer to a different security manager, was yelling a certain phrase in Italian that translates to not a great word in English. She then asked him to back up, in which he refused and continued to scream in her face. Deputies had to get involved and told Dominic to back up once again. While exiting the park, Dominic came into her space again, inches from her face, and told her to do something in front of several guests and small children. The families and other Disney visitors appeared to be frightened by his aggressive and erratic behavior. I can imagine. Dominic was intoxicated. Now that's a shocker. I'm shocked to hear this. In a public establishment causing a major disturbance and breach of the peace, authorities said in the report. He did this by creating a hostile environment towards other guests and becoming extremely confrontational toward Disney managers while being asked to leave. He was trespassed from Walt Disney World for his behavior and advised never to return or else he will be subject to arrest. Once we exited the park and finally got to the front entrance, Dominic was being secured in handcuffs. Matinel decided to take matters into his own hands and harass myself and Deputy Michael Root as we were trying to conduct law enforcement action. But Matinel approached us from behind aggressively. That is a decision. And began to cause a major disturbance once again in front of several children and families. One of the deputies gave Matinel several direct orders to back up and away from us as it was extremely dangerous. Matinel refused our direct order to back away and knowingly remained within 25 feet of us with the intent to impede and interfere with our arrest. I'm always shocked when people do this, like just on the street. Going up to a police officer behind, where they can't see you, not a good idea. I'm wondering just how many of these people feel like very comfortable just because they're at Disney and assuming they're not going to take, certain actions because of the setting, which is probably pretty accurate. I am not backing up. I don't give a something. I'm giving you enough space, Ada yelled at the deputies, according to his arrest report. Ada was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of resisting an officer without violence and disorderly intoxication. He pleaded not guilty. It's been talked about before, but a lot of these intoxication incidents seem to happen around Epcot, and the whole drinking around the world and doing all that. I mean, if you go to Epcot in the evening time, you're going to see some people that have had a little bit too much to drink, which I've always said is an investment, because drinking alcohol at any theme park is it's pricey. So doing it to the point of being that intoxicated, they've dropped some good coin for all of that drinking, one would assume. I would say, first off, don't drink too much in theme parks. I mean, enjoy yourself, I suppose, if that's what you want to do, but know your limits, I think, is a good thing. I always talk about this with like the heat as well, as I think a lot of people get in trouble in theme parks that have, heat stroke and things, as a lot of people aren't used to the heat. They're not used to walking around in that heat. And then if you don't know the warning signs, all of a sudden that can come on you really quick. Same thing with drinking. Like, know your limits. If you're a 2-drink type person, like, have a drink and then chill. Don't go 4 or 5 deep and then find yourself in confronting a woman in a wheelchair and getting kicked out of Disney World. I'd say at that point, you've made some bad decisions. You don't want to do that. Although you hear these stories and you think that's crazy, but they continually happen. It's kind of astonishing. And another one we have, and this one's kind of interesting here. So Walt Disney World guests made fake bomb threat and shut down the entire monorail system.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Adam Murphy could say whatever he wanted at Disney World. It was his constitutional right, he told his wife. And soon Murphy would end up in the Orange County jail under arrest for making a fake bomb threat. That's one way to spend your trip. The bizarre situation unfolded November 23rd at the Grand Floridian Resort and caused a public disruption, delaying the monorail in the station. Says Murphy, 31, of Deltona, was going through the monorail security screening with his wife when they got flagged for an additional check. While the Disney security guard checked his wife's bag, Murphy said she had a gun in her bag. She didn't. His wife urged her husband not to say that. Murphy escalated it. I have a bomb, he said, according to the Orange County Sheriff's report. He didn't. I'm all for jokes, but I feel like that's not really, if you're talking about making a joke, like I'm assuming perhaps this was in a playful manner. But, when you're going through security, airports anywhere, there's certain things you just don't say that A, it's not funny, and B, you're just going to cause yourself problems. One of which would be going through a security line and saying anything about a gun or a bomb. That's just not a good decision, whether or not you are saying it in a tongue-in-cheek manner, which maybe he was. I mean, it's hard to tell from a police report. But that's just not a good idea. Again, his wife told Murphy to stop talking like that. Adam replied to her that it was his constitutional right to say whatever he wanted to, the arrest report said. The security guards also warned Murphy about his comments and then notified their superior. The report said Disney then contacted 911. The monorail was stuck in the station as Orange County Sheriff's deputies arrived on the scene, and Disney bomb dogs searched the monorail and a family member's car for any bombs. Finally, the monorail could proceed and Murphy went to jail. The arrest report said because Adam made a false report to Disney concerning that he had a bomb on him, that Adam knew the report he made was false, and that the report was made with intent to deceive, mislead, or otherwise misinform. Adam was arrested and charged with violation of Florida state statute, false reporting, concerning the placing and planting of a bomb, dynamite, or other deadly explosive, or a weapon of mass destruction. While in the back of the patrol car, Adam also stated that he believed he could yell the word fire when he knew there was no fire, and that he was allowed to say that because it's his constitutional right. Gosh. I wonder if alcohol was involved in this. He was trespassed from Disney. You look at something like that and you think, okay, maybe if you're giving the benefit of the doubt, maybe he was making a joke. I've heard people do this before. It's not really funny, but like, haha, yeah, whatever. Obviously, if you're going through security, they can look in her bag. Like, it's more than likely. That's what I'm thinking in my head. I could be completely wrong, but at the same time, it's hard to fault security because if something happens, like they're in trouble. Like, you have to take some of that stuff serious. So I would just say, it may have been known that this guy was just being difficult, and because he was saying these things, and they may have asked him, hey, clarify, do you have, are you telling us you have a bomb? And he could have been, being a smart aleck and being like, yeah, totally. You can't say these things in security settings, especially. So, yelling these like fire in a building and yelling, anything about gun or a bomb. The reason you can't do that is because it is the danger of provoking violence. So that's why you can't do that. Obviously, it's common sense. I don't think most people are doing this, but it is interesting. You hear these stories around and you talk to cast members and team members. You hear things like this a lot. I mean, when the story came out about the person relieving themselves in the Cosmic Rewind queue a few weeks ago. Multiple team members and cast members messaged me and they said, you would be shocked how common that occurrence is. It just happened to be that one was caught on video and camera. Because as I've always said, most people in a theme park on a day-to-day basis they're fine. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're enjoying themselves. But all it takes is one person out of 100, which is, 99% of people are doing just fine. One person out of that 100 can cause issues, ruin it for everybody else. Well, when you have thousands and thousands of people in a theme park per day, and if you say 1 out of 100 are not doing what they're supposed to, that leaves you with multiple people in a theme park per day that potentially are causing issues, thinking the rules don't apply to them, drinking too much, all the things like that cause issues. And it's unfortunate. I mean, it's human nature on some level, but it's, especially unfortunate when, kids are around and things like that. It's easier to see these things because everyone has a camera now, so perhaps they're just reported on more because of that reason. But, we've seen, especially at Disney, just an uptick in just bad guest behavior. And I don't know, I don't recall hearing about it as much before, say, COVID, like 2018, 2019 time period. So whether or not it happens more or you just hear about it more, it is a worry, I'm sure, for theme parks about these types of incidents and then really causing people to be hesitant to go to a theme park, because one of the reasons people go to theme parks is because they're deemed to be safe. Like, you go there, it's a controlled environment, you're enjoying yourself with your family. Like, people don't anticipate necessarily having altercations or people doing certain things in theme parks. But this is also why I've said, because of this out there and like obviously getting a lot more headlines and people talking about it. And this is why I think that, we've talked about before, Universal has developed an AI system they have a patent for that is designed to basically, deal with bad guest behavior. Now, it's not implemented. They're not using it yet to my knowledge, but they have a patent out there for it. And it would do things like monitoring guests if they had too much to drink, if people are cutting line, if they're smoking, if they're cursing. Like, it would hear things and then be able to alert team members quickly that there's something going on. And that was some sort of AI-based system. So I think that would only go further as AI gets more and more used and mature in terms of a technology. I'm sure they'll use it more. I'm sure Disney's probably looking at something similar. We know they're looking at AI systems. So I think both of them will implement things inside the parks. Probably a lot of it will be facial recognition. If a guest has had too much to drink, you can imagine they can then cut them off. I would love to see the data that shows how many of these incidents involve alcohol. I'm going to take a pretty good guess. It's over half. So if you can try and mitigate those, then you're just left with people that are, for whatever reason, acting out. Sometimes that can be an easier situation to deal with. Sometimes it can't be. But I'd say there's a lot of motivation there to try and figure out a way to monitor that, because theme parks are not going to stop selling alcohol. It's a very big selling point. They make a lot of money on it. So, on some level, they have to accept a certain amount of bad behavior when you are serving alcohol. But I think they have motivation to try and find a way to mitigate the people that just decide to drink too much and, ruin a day for everybody else. A lot of these things you can laugh at and they're kind of funny, but at some point in terms of a PR for a theme park, one of the worst things that could have happen is that people don't feel safe. And I think that's really what comes down to, outside of attractions and things to do and what new stuff you're building, new theme parks, all this stuff. If people don't feel safe, that is going to deter people from coming to theme parks. So they have a lot of motivation to try and quell a lot of this stuff. And I think that we will implement a lot of systems, probably AI-based, to try and crack down on these things. Because that's going to become a very big industry, and there's a lot of money riding on the fact of cracking down on these things so people still feel safe in theme parks. Either way, though, that's going to be it, though, for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what's the wildest thing you've seen in the theme parks, and do you think it was alcohol-related? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.